does also twist side to side. So if she was on the ground hurt, bitch. No, but she'd be okay. Alright, what's up TBG Mob? If you've been paying attention to Star Wars, you'll know that the Bad Batch has been a fan favorite since their inception in Star Wars Season 7, and they were so phenomenally taken by the community itself that they've been blessed with their own show called The Bad Batch. Now, you and I know that really it's Season 8 of the Clone Wars, but we'll call it The Bad Batch here on TBG. But while we're waiting for that to air, I was able to cut myself one of these bad boys right here, Space Rambo. Oh, excuse me, Hunter, from the Bad Batch. Now, this is a phenomenal piece, and coming off of that Bo-Katan piece that I did last week, this is even better than that. And I'm going to go ahead and break it down for you so you can go ahead and see why $20 gets you so far that when people say you shouldn't be mad because a figure only costs 20 bucks, let this video be the start of you getting rid of that kind of mentality, because this is so good that it's worth above its price tag. But let me go ahead and break it down to you so you can see why that is. All right, let's get it. Alright you guys, so this episode is sponsored to you by Load Up Freight Management. We find the loads that pay what you want going where you want. Now listen, if you've been paying attention to the trucking industry, you'll know that it's a billion-dollar industry. And currently right now there's a really huge backup of work, which is the reason why we're not even seeing a lot of these guys in stores right now. So please link up with my guys at Load Up so that we can go ahead and start getting all this moving again. And we can go ahead and start finding some cool ass action figures on the streets again at our local Targets, Walmarts, and comic book shops. Load Up Freight Management. Go ahead and check in the description below for the website and link up with my guys. Alright you guys, and here we have Hunter still in the box, and it's a pretty good looking box the way we've seen a lot of the Star Wars stuff in general. We basically have nice window packaging that shows us everything that we get: the helmet, the backpack, both guns and a knife, and the figure itself that looks incredibly imposing. This stare right here is something that would make Rambo proud, so I enjoy the reference that I make to that. But it's fairly standard. Star Wars Black Series at the top. Then we have Star Wars Bad Batch with the Hunter on the bottom. On the side, we do get a really nice picture of him holding his weapon, which is actually kind of weird because if you look at the left arm where he's supposed to be holding his pistol, there's a sheath right there that we don't get in the art. So I don't know if that's just something that they didn't realize that they did wrong, or maybe it's hidden back there because he's just holding it perfectly. But regardless, it's a good looking photo overall. And then on the back, we do get more of the same, basically his bio. Again, the photo, it does look very nice, very imposing. I do like the red that we get here. And he is the first one of this specific, I guess, batch of figures that we're going to be getting. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and on. So I guess they're restarting it. So that is pretty nice. And basically it just says the Bad Batch, Hunter, the Bad Batch, technically known as Clone Force 99, is a result of Kaminoan experiments to create a specialist unit of clone commandos. Hunter, their leader, is a strong and stoic soldier with extraordinarily keen senses that give him an edge when tracking down his targets, hence the name Hunter. On the opposite side, we just get more of that red and the Star Wars Black Series on the bottom, and then just a side window shot, which is really nice, of the Hunter figure itself. So the presentation, just like we've seen this entire time, it's a phenomenal looking piece with a lot of shelf presence. And I'm telling you, when I walked into the Target and I saw it on the actual wall, it really stuck out. This is something that's really nice. And again, whether you have it out of the box or inside of the box on a wall, it's going to be something that people gravitate to look at when they do see it. All right, you guys, and here he is, Hunter Stallone himself from the Bad Batch upcoming series. Now, this is a phenomenal looking figure, and it's phenomenally posing too. One of the things that are so cool about these characters is that not only are they clone troopers, well, should I say genetically mutated clone troopers, but on top of that, they are also unique characters. So it's not like we have 20 more of these guys in this armor. It's just Hunter. He's different from Wrecker, as Wrecker is different from Crosshairs, as Crosshairs is different from so on and so forth. So this is something that's really badass. It's a bespoke piece of armor. So let me go ahead and give you the full 360 and break down what we're seeing here. All right, so just to start off with, we basically have this nice gray, almost matte color that basically paints the entirety of the armor that we see mostly, right? He does does have a bit of a black undersuit, the same way you would see on all the other clones, but he does have gray in some of the middle areas, which is pretty dope. So up top, as you can tell, we have that gray on the side of the face, some red right there and what would be the vents, some silver in these portions right here, which I'm not exactly sure what you would call that, but still they are painted fairly well, fairly nicely. Maybe a little bit of overspray right here on that last part. And then right down the middle of the head, we do have, again, more Bad Batch defining colors, which is the red color that they all basically share. And so it comes from the top of the head and comes all the way down into the upper chin area, giving his mouth this really cool, really mean look that I want to say looks different from a lot of the other clone troopers. Now we do see some scratches in the plastic, like right there, or missing paint right there. Remember, these guys have gone to war, and this guy is one of the more up close and personal guys, so obviously he would have a fair amount of damage overall. And I like that we get a lot of those textured looks throughout the body. And then we do have these shoulder pieces on each side, which are painted fairly well and do have the Bad Batch insignias on it, which is really nice. The skull, the 10 on both sides, or potentially 01, and that looks really nice. We have, again, different kind of armor right here than what we've seen on other figures. Remember, this is a bespoke armor, more of that red coming down, more of the battle damage, and again, we do see some of that silver under it, since this is probably a silver paint color, or potentially a metallic under it, while on top of it is more of a spray. So again, that's really nice. The gray in the armors, and again the black that's under. One thing to note is that it might look like his shoulders are coming off a bit, in the way that they're not actually connected like a normal one onto the shoulder. They're not integrated in. They're actually connected right here into the socket of the arm itself, which I thought might have been incorrect, but after rewatching some of the Bad Batch stuff from the Clone Wars Season 7, that is in fact where they're connected at. If you watch it, if you look at it, that is actually 100% correct. So kudos that they, decided to go with basically the art, or should I say the animation. So pretty good overall. Now on the side that doesn't have the painted face for the helmet, again, great colors all the way through. The black in the visor is pretty nice. I like it for the most part. And then we do see the red on the shoulder pad, which, as you can tell, battle damaged, and I like that it's black on the front and black on the back. And then we get to see more of the backpack here, and as you can tell, it's not just a square. It definitely has some lines, some indentations, more to it, which is nice. They didn't necessarily have to do all that, but well, you know what, they did. I should stop saying that they didn't necessarily have to do anything. They have to do all of this for this to be worth what it's worth to us, right? So for the most part, I do like the way it looks. And then I like how they integrated in the elbow, basically on the top right here, it's black. That's supposed to coincide with the black here of the Under Armour. And I like that they didn't just leave it bare. They kind of gave it a little bit of that elbow piece, and that is nice. Kudos to them for putting that in there. When it comes to the back, the actual plastic of the, the actual back plastic of the backpack is done pretty nicely, I will say. I do like it. Clean lines, more of the red, fairly simple, but again, some damage overall. Maybe this portion right here could have been painted. I'm not quite sure. I did not pay attention to the show itself to see whether or not that should be painted, but again, it is nice to see that that's in there. Now for the side of the head that is painted, and again, it is splotchy in certain areas as it's supposed to be. So again, this guy is a close quarter combat character, and it shows in his armor. Again, we see more of the reds and blacks on his shoulder pauldron, and again the red and then basically some of the red that we do see on his shoulder pad, or on the chin. Let me go ahead and turn him a little bit so you can see a better look. And this is pretty correct. This is honestly pretty correct to what we see in the show. So again, they did a good job of translating this into real life, into figure form. Alright, so when it does come to Hunter's face, they did a phenomenal job. This looks a lot like what we saw in the cartoon, but brought more into a real life look. And it is the slightest bit glossy, as you can tell. That doesn't look as bad, let's say, when you're seeing it in person as you are maybe in the camera. But for the most part, this representation of him is great. It's a phenomenal looking piece. Again, it's really nice that these aren't just armor pieces that we see that are bespoke, but that the head under it reveals a unique character. So the hair is done very nicely. The headband around his head looks pretty good overall. He does have the ghost on the side of his left arm, on the left side of the headband, and then his face itself is covered. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is supposed to be a birthmark or if it's supposed to be war paint or potentially war tattoos, since I believe they do that. But it looks great. He looks phenomenal. He looks like a total badass, like some kind of Native American, war chief or something. It's a really cool look, and while I imagine droids don't necessarily experience fear in the same way we do, any enemies that he's going to go up against are going to have some kind of fear towards him, and it is a pretty good look overall. The eyes are done very nice. The hair is done well. Let me go ahead and spin him around. The hair itself looks pretty good, and then the back side, the knot itself looks like it's done fairly cleanly, and again, it does look pretty good. The hair itself looks fairly real, and the bandana itself that's going around his head looks like it's a separate piece altogether, which I can appreciate. Just take a look at those eyes, man. He makes Sylvester Stallone proud. When it comes to both forearms, they look really nice. Again, we see the grays, the blacks, the same color reds. Again, very uniform as it should be. And it's painted on pretty good. The aesthetic look itself is really nice. Again, we do see a little bit of damage here and there. And actually, we do have, the only difference is that on the left arm, we do have a hole where this piece goes in, which sheaths his sword, which I don't quite remember that being in the show. I need to rewatch it again, but that's really badass. That's pretty damn cool. I wasn't expecting that when I first pulled him out, and when I saw it, I was like, damn, this is dope as hell. So for me, that's a plus. I really like that. And for the most part, everything does look pretty nice. I'll go over the knife and all that during accessories, but the sheath itself is done pretty nicely. Again, it does have all the little geometry on it that we do see in a lot of stuff here in Star Wars. And then the lower back itself looks fairly good. This, again, little scratches and damaged pieces that kind of break up what's a sea of just plastic color and black and grays. So that's fairly done well, and I enjoy it. I think that this is, again, a really nicely put together piece. All right, now the legs themselves are also handled pretty well, and we'll get into some articulation about it later. But at the very top, as you can see, there is a little bit of damage right there. Grays on the inside of the leg all the way down to the feet. Grays on the outside, only on the calves. And then the charcoal gray, and then the lighter, more steel-looking gray on the outer thighs, on the knees, and down the middle of the shins, down into the feet. Overall, looks incredibly well. The red down the shins, again, nice touch. These are really well designed for the show, and they translate very nice into the figure form itself. The feet are all just one color, which, we've seen plenty of times before. And again, more scratches, battle damage, and more that we see the silver metallic color of the actual armor under it. So again, done pretty nicely. And then the usual Under Armour look of these black portions right here with the textured look all the way down that's sculpted in. So very nice touch overall. So when it comes to accessories, Hunter definitely comes with a load of stuff. So he comes with the backpack that we've obviously seen on him already, and it does look really nice. Again, we do see all the textured looks, the reds, and that is the clip that goes inside. And as you can tell, it's all basically one brick of the same piece, but it looks nice. It's done well and looks good on his back. We also have a blaster, one that I'm not quite sure if we've seen this specific one other than in the Commando stuff that we got. Which I don't know if Black Series ever made the Republic Commando guys, but this is one of those guns, and it's phenomenal looking. All basically one color, but it does have almost a pearlescent look to it, and it's handled very nicely, fits in his hand very well, and I do believe that right there is one of the clips for it. So again, good look overall, and I really appreciate what they did here with giving us a gun that's a throwback to the original Commandos that we grew up with. Now, obviously, we do get that knife that I mentioned earlier that is sheathed, and let me see if I can get it. There you go. So it is not just a normal knife. It does have this yellow coloring in it, and I do believe this is either a vibro knife or it's a knife that's specifically supposed to short circuit droids. So it has a multi-purpose use, obviously, and it's done really nicely. Silver all the way through, black on the hilt, and then that yellow coloring that goes through it, making it look kind of Technotron, you know what I mean? So really nice aesthetic look. And then he does come with a pistol. Now, my only gripe with the fact that he does come with a pistol, it is a good looking pistol overall. We've seen this before, I believe, on the ARC Troopers, but it's done very nicely. Again, that kind of pearlescent look. My only problem with this is that for some reason he doesn't come with anywhere to put it. There's no holster, there's no you just kind of have to put it to the side, and I kind of hate that. I think that there could have been somewhere where they could have put that piece either in the backpack or on his side piece, but at the same time, again, I don't quite remember him ever holding a pistol. So if he did, then that's just an extra gun that I guess we have, and if he didn't, then again, an extra piece that we have. And then of course there is his helmet, which as you guys saw earlier, is just a really nice piece overall. Some people have complained it's a little big, but I imagine that this is really what it would look like the size wise on a real person's head. And for the most part, I think the sizing is pretty correct, pretty anatomically correct. Maybe it could have been the slightest bit smaller, but for me, I like it. I think it's pretty dope, and it has an imposing look to it, which we should have on a guy whose name is Hunter. Now, when it comes to articulation on a clone body, I am willing to say that the Bad Batch characters were blessed with, I want to say, some of the best articulations. So let me go ahead and show you guys from the top to the bottom what we have here. So when it comes to the head, we do get a fair amount of articulation here. Let me go ahead and show you. He does look up pretty far up. He's looking basically straight up in the air at this point, which does give him a pretty good look. And then he can look down about that far, which again makes him looking basically directly at the ground, which is phenomenal. Now on top of that, the neck piece under it, as you can kind of see there, it does move with him a little bit, which gives him that extra level of personality both ways. So that is, again, a nice touch overall for the unmasked look. Now when it does come to his shoulders, we basically get a, full T-pose out of that. And actually he does go a little bit further in both directions. He can go up about that high, which is phenomenal. Come on, look at this. There's not that many figures that can do this that are supposed to be armored figures, so that is really nice. Now when it does come to the shoulders, again, you saw how high it can go. It does do a full 360, and then this piece right here, the shoulder piece itself, actually can rotate along with the arm and follow it. So it's not a static piece, which is a phenomenal choice. I've had figures before that have it static on the shoulder, and that's not good. I'm looking at you guys, Power Rangers, Magna Defender. Now at the top of the bicep, basically right there, it looks like it should be able to twist, but it's on there tight, and I don't want to ruin the figure. And it looks like there might be the slightest bit of a butterfly joint in there, but it's almost negligible. And then here at the elbows, we do give only one joint, but you get noticeably past 90. That's really good. Alright, so when it does come to that elbow piece, as you can tell, it does come up noticeably past 90 degrees, and then what they do is they give it a swivel left to right, which does go only about that far because of that elbow piece, but trust me, you're not going to need more than that. And same in the other direction, which is again really nice. And then as we move down to the wrist, we do get a full swivel, and then it is on a hinge, which is nice. It can hinge up that far, hinge down about that far, which is great. That cowboy look is always good for the gun. And then on the other arm, it's exactly the same thing. The only difference is that we do have more of the push-up hinge where it goes inwards like that. And because of the armor, it doesn't really go anywhere else, but for the most part, that does look pretty good. Now for the legs, this is where it gets really phenomenal. Okay, so let me go ahead and actually move it up just a little bit. So for the torso, he can go forward about that far, which is great, and about that far back, which is phenomenal. And then he does shift over pretty far, and then he does shift in the other direction really far. Phenomenal joint in the middle. I'm not quite sure who can beat him at this point, unless it's another Bad Batch member with basically the same body. Alright, so back to the legs. So this is where it gets really cool, right? So he can do a splits pose, and it does go about that far, so that's again really nice. And when you come back up, you can tell that this part here does swivel on the inside, so there is a cut. So he does come up to a full kick naturally, like normal. Like, come on guys, are you guys seeing this? This is really nice. Let me go ahead and bring it back down for you. So what happens here is that this piece right here can actually tuck in behind, allowing you to get an actual full flexion of the leg that allows it to come just shy, if not, I guess you could call that 90 degrees, but just shy of 90 degrees. I don't know what has taken them so long to be able to make this kind of figure, but it's finally here, guys. Finally a piece that doesn't do this stupid shit, where you bring up the leg and when you get to the top, it's like this. And right here at the knee, single knee, but it does go noticeably past 90, which is nice, and it does swivel. So for whatever reason you don't want to put it in right here in the hips, that's fine. You can just do it the normal way. Now, why would you want to do it this way? Well, the reality is, I don't know if they meant to make it accessible that this could just kind of fit in that space right there, but that very, very corner piece takes a little bit of abuse every time I do that. So I can understand why maybe you wouldn't go with that method of putting him into a like kneeling position, and why you might instead want to put him like towards the side. But either way, you have the choice of doing either one, and either one works phenomenally. And as we move down to the ankle does come down. It's kind of stiff, but it does come down far enough to give you a lot of motion. And then if we come back up to the top, it does again do the same. My only gripe with this is that it kind of doesn't have a good middle. So he's always kind of either leaning a little forward or leaning a little back, but for the most part, it does work pretty well. Now, he is a soldier, and he does have a pretty good neutral pose from the front. Like I said, it does lean the slightest bit forward, but it does look really nice. He has a really nice at attention pose, which is really cool. And then the only thing is from the front, his arms kind of go off to the side a little bit, and that has to do with the armor. So there's no real way around that, but it looks good. I think it looks pretty phenomenal, and they captured really the essence of Hunter with this figure. Alright, so the reality is this Bad Batch Hunter figure right here that we were able to get is phenomenal. I have to give it to Hasbro and the Black Series for bringing such an incredible figure to the fray. We've gotten a lot of releases this year, a lot of good Clone Trooper stuff, some old, some new. Some of the new worked decently well, but this right here is a knockout completely. Look at the pose that I was able to get him into. This is basically just shy of Star Wars Black Series level of stuff. Maybe double jointed elbows would make it a little bit more. Maybe a butterfly joint in the chest might give it a little extra. Maybe a little bit more of an ankle rocker, because he doesn't really have one, would make his foot more flat. But look at this. The fact that I can get him in this pose this quickly and this easily is just a testament to how much you can do with this figure. It is really no wonder that Black Series has been getting more and more popular, because they've been upping their game so much. To bring us a piece like this and for us to be able to get it not only well done and well articulated and well engineered, but even more importantly on top of that, before the show even comes out, I do believe that before the Bad Batch even drops, I think we're already going to have him, Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshairs. Actually, Wrecker might not be in time, but the fact that we'll still have a few ahead of time is incredibly badass. And the fact that they're this good really builds anticipation for how good the show itself is going to be. And for me, I think that this is one of my favorite figures at this price point, because again, I've heard a lot of people make excuses for companies like McFarlane and others for their $20 pieces. Well, look, this is what $20 can get you, and this right here is a phenomenal figure. Highly posable, well engineered, well articulated, very well painted, a plethora of accessories. This guy comes with it all, and on top of that, a unique bespoke look with a unique face under it that we're not going to get in any other figure. This is without a doubt worth the price tag at any point that you're going to have to get, because this can stand toe-to-toe with Black Series, and that's not always the case. That's not to say that they're not good for what they are, but this one is a grade above everything else that we've seen before, for the exception of maybe some of the most recent Mandalorian stuff like Bo-Katan and some of the stuff that I've been able to capture, but there have been nothing but hits, and this just continues pushing that bar for Hasbro and the Black Series, and I think this is a must-have for you guys. Alright guys, but what is a review without some size comparisons? So let me go ahead and pull out a few things and show you guys what we have. Okay, so here we have the Black Series Crosshairs standing right next to the Hunter, and the more I see it, the more I think this is just so badass. This is so cool to have these guys. But in terms of size comparisons, you are seeing this correctly. They are side by side. They're identically close to the camera, and as you can tell, Crosshairs is just the slightest bit taller. And now that they're right next to each other, I can actually tell that there are legit differences between the bodies, and it's more than you would think. I'm going to break it down for you when I do my Crosshair review, but in the meantime, he is just the slightest bit taller, helmeted. Now, we do have Hunter right next to the armor from the Mandalorian Black Series, and as you can tell, a lot bigger, a lot noticeably bigger, but she is one of the smaller female characters that we have. I'm sure like next to Cara Dune, he would look a bit not as large, but still, as you can tell, an imposing figure even next to our armor. Now here we have him next to Bo-Katan, and as you can tell, Bo-Katan is the slightest bit, she's not the slightest bit, she's obviously a lot smaller in the same vein as the armor, but she's a little bit larger than the armor, so For the most part, this does look pretty realistic. If they had their helmets off, we could go ahead and see what that would really look like, but I really just wanted to do it with the helmet because this is going to be his full size when he's standing amongst anybody else. Alright, and now we have the G.I. Joe Flint standing right next to him, and as you can tell, he is a little bit larger, and I mean, as you can tell, the G.I. Joe line just is on a slightly different scale. They're not exactly the same, though I want to say G.I. Joe is a little bit closer to actual 6-inch line, while the Star Wars Black Series stuff tends to run a little bit on the smaller side, so not bad. For the most part, this still looks like it could be credible, but obviously Flint is noticeably larger in every dimension. We'll see how he sizes up against Wrecker when we get him, but obviously, and if all the other G.I. Joes are going to be basically this size or a little larger, so more or less you can see the comparison here in size to both lines. Now here we have Saber from the SH Figure Arts line of the Kamen Riders, and as you can tell, even helmeted, he is more closely on the same height, but again, you can tell that anatomically speaking, they're different, right? On the left we have a more realistic view of a body, while on the right it's more of a cartoony looking, and then obviously to scale is different because the helmet on the left would be a lot smaller than the guy. The head inside the helmet on the left would be a lot smaller than the one on the right that we get with Crosshairs, or excuse me, with Hunter. So it could still work, you know, in the diorama if you're taking photos. I'm sure it still could, but obviously this is how they scale. And then from Sekiro, we have this Figma figure of the main character, which I seem to keep neglecting the name. Please, somebody, if you're watching this, just put his name in the comments. I feel like I'm never going to actually Google it. But here he is nonetheless, and he's one of the larger Figma figures that I think we've gotten for what's supposed to be like a regular 6-inch scale figure. Damn, I can't even talk today. And as you can tell, this actually kind of works. Obviously he's stylized way differently, but the head size and the body size and the overall shape, especially considering that he's wearing like poofy clothing, this looks more like it could actually work. That head looks like it could fit under the helmet. I'm pretty sure they'd be fairly closely sized, so maybe this works a little better, but regardless, it is something that could potentially be in the Star Wars universe, you know. Add a little bit more grays to the parts that are supposed to be bone, and it looks like he could have a cybernetic arm like Anakin. So again, this is how they size up, and they're fairly to scale. Alright guys, so Hunter's no joke. He's the entire package. If Black Series keeps coming out with things that are on the same level as this, or like the Bo-Katan we got before that, if they just continue this trend, they have my money on lock. I'm going to continue buying this kind of stuff because at this price point, I don't think there's really anyone else in the game at the $20 price tag, you know, 20 to 24 depending on where you're buying it from, that gives you just this much. This honestly builds up so much anticipation for the show that's about to start of the Bad Batch in the coming months or weeks, and this is just a phenomenal piece overall that I think, regardless of whether you're necessarily into Star Wars, maybe you're just into general sci-fi or just cool looking armored figures, this is a cool looking armored figure that you want. This is exactly what you want out of a figure that's a fairly wide release. I know it wasn't that easy. I've actually sold, I think, 2 of them. I was able to get 2 of them in my hand, and I was able to sell them because I basically pre-ordered way too many and forgot to cancel some of my pre-orders. So, you know, trying to make sure I got it. But I guess it hasn't been all that easy to find regardless in stores, so hopefully Hasbro can go ahead and ramp up production of this kind of stuff, because I think that this is so cool. This is something that everybody would want, and if for whatever reason they did make some kind of Bad Batch regular soldier, not like the Elite Troopers that we got, but something more regular, where we could get maybe this body and maybe just a different helmet and different, you know, just slightly different stuff, everyone would buy it. Everyone would buy multiple of that. Obviously the problem with something like Hunter and Crosshairs and Wrecker and so on and so forth is that they're bespoke characters, so there's really no reason to own more than one. But if you did, I'd understand why. This is just an incredible piece considering the money you get and considering some of the other things in the same line that you just don't get as much for the same price tag as you do with this figure. Alright guys, so if you did like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you're going to be picking up the entire Bad Batch crew, if you're excited for this show. Again, this is still a fairly new channel. I'm still trying to build up my stuff, so by all means, please go ahead and share these videos, let your friends know about it so that I can continue to make these videos, you know, get more views, grow as a community, and be able to eventually sustain myself to do this a little bit more on the full-time side. But as I mentioned, please like, comment, subscribe, and be on the lookout, because as you can tell, that's Crosshairs in the background. I will be doing a review on him and some of the other stuff that I'm always showing a sizing of, but I just never get a chance to review them. So I do want to bring you guys that, and I have some new content on the way, so please stay tuned. I will be bringing some stuff for you guys soon enough, and it'll be something that everyone can enjoy, and hopefully will broaden the scope of the content that I'm bringing to you guys. All right, but until next time, this was a TBG feature, and I will see you TBGers later.